Welcome back to the channel, folks, where we dive into the wild, wonderful world of men transforming into women in all kinds of fascinating ways. If that's your vibe, don't forget to smash that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Now let's jump right into today's story. Emma followed Claire upstairs, still adjusting to the way her body moved. Her hips swayed slightly with each step, and her balance still felt a little off, but she did her best to ignore it. "Ignore it," she says, "as if I can just forget that my entire skeletal structure has been completely reconfigured," she thought wryly, gripping the banister with more force than necessary. Every movement felt like a negotiation with this new, unfamiliar form. "You're gripping that banister like it's the only thing keeping you from floating away," Claire observed, glancing back at her. "Relax a little. Your body knows what to do, even if your brain hasn't caught up yet." "Easy for you to say," Emma retorted. "You've had your whole life to figure out how to operate those hips. I've had approximately 12 hours. The stairs felt steeper, narrower from her reduced height. Even the air felt different against her more sensitive skin, the subtle currents in the hallway registering as gentle caresses along her exposed arms and neck. "Think of it like riding a bike," Claire suggested, reaching the top of the stairs. "The more you overthink it, the more likely you are to fall. Except in this case, the bike has been completely redesigned, and someone swapped out all the parts while I was asleep," Emma countered. "And also, I'm the bike." Claire laughed, the sound light and musical. "Your sense of humor survived the transformation intact, I see. It's either joke about it, or have an existential crisis," Emma replied with a half-smile. "And frankly, I don't have the energy for the latter right now." Once they reached Claire's room, Claire moved over to her dresser and began pulling out clothes. "All right, for now, this is the best we can do," she said, laying out the items on the bed. Emma stepped closer and looked down at the selection: a pair of simple silk panties, a light camisole, some loose flowy pants, and a tank top. She picked up the panties with 2 fingers, examining them with a mixture of curiosity and trepidation. "I've removed these from women before, but I never thought I'd be putting them on myself," she muttered. Claire rolled her eyes. "Still the same old Michael underneath all those new chromosomes, I see." "What did you expect?" Emma replied, setting the underwear back down. "A complete personality transplant alongside the physical one. Some parts of me are still intact, thank you very much." She glanced down at herself. "At least for now." Claire turned to her with a small smirk. "Until next week, when your body finishes redistributing the fat, your breasts, butt, thighs. This is what you'll have to wear." She gestured to the selection of clothes, all clearly chosen for their simplicity and comfort, rather than style or fit. "We're in the awkward in-between phase where nothing really fits properly. Kind of like actual adolescence, except accelerated." Emma sighed, nodding. "Yeah, makes sense. And, well," she glanced down at herself, then back at the pants. "I guess leggings are off the table for now." She gestured vaguely toward the remaining evidence of her masculinity, which, while diminished, was still very much present. "Not exactly something I want to advertise in form-fitting clothing." Claire chuckled. "Yeah, probably not the best idea yet. Though, to be honest, the current trend of oversized sweats and hoodies would work perfectly for your transitional state." "Small mercies," Emma replied. "At least the clothing gods have smiled upon my predicament. Baggy is in, just when I need it most." She ran her hands through her long blonde hair, still marveling at the silky texture, so different from her formerly short, coarser lock. Even her hair felt different, lighter, softer, more responsive to the slightest movement. Emma just exhaled and shrugged. "Well, why not?" Without hesitation, She let the silk robe slide off her shoulders and drop to the floor. The air felt cool against her newly sensitive skin, raising goosebumps along her arms. She glanced down at her transformed body. Slender, almost androgynous, with narrow shoulders, a slim torso, and the beginnings of feminine hips. Her legs seemed impossibly long from this new perspective, her feet delicate and small. Claire didn't even bother turning around, and to be honest, Emma didn't really care anymore. After everything that had happened, modesty felt a little pointless. "It's not like you haven't seen it all before," Emma commented, gesturing to her body. "Literally. It's your DNA, after all." "True," Claire agreed, sorting through the clothes she'd laid out. "Though it's still strange seeing a younger version of myself standing naked in my bedroom. Kind of like having a time-traveling twin. Except this twin used to be a 35-year-old man," Emma added dryly. "Just a minor detail." She grabbed the silk panties first, slipping them on carefully, adjusting the fabric to sit comfortably. It felt strange, but not unbearable. The silk was cool and smooth against her skin, the sensation entirely different from the boxers she'd worn her entire adult life. The way the fabric hugged her hips, the gentle pressure between her legs, all of it was alien territory. "These feel weird," she commented, adjusting the waistband. "How do you deal with underwear that's constantly present?" "Men's underwear kind of just exists without making itself known. You get used to it," Claire replied with a shrug. "After a while, you don't even notice it. Though wait until you have to deal with thongs, those make themselves known in ways you can't ignore." "I think I'll pass on that particular adventure for now," Emma said firmly. One underwear revelation at a time. Next was the camisole, which she slid over her head, the soft material clinging gently to her new slender frame. "This feels nice, actually," she admitted, smoothing the fabric over her flat chest. "Like being hugged by a cloud." "Women's clothing is generally softer," Claire explained. "One of the perks of the gender, our casual clothes are infinitely more comfortable." "What about the formal wear?" Emma asked, already suspecting the answer. Claire grimaced. "That's where we get the short end of the stick. Men get practical pockets and comfortable shoes. Women get impractical everything and shoes that double as torture devices." "Fantastic," Emma muttered. "Something to look forward to." The flowy pants were next, and she was relieved that they felt loose and comfortable, giving her room to breathe. "These are actually great," she commented, doing a small experimental twirl. The fabric swished pleasantly around her legs, light and airy. "Why don't all women's pants feel like this?" "Because society decided women should suffer for fashion," Claire replied with a wry smile. "But you're in luck. Palazzo pants are back in style, so you can be both comfortable and trendy." Finally, she pulled on the tank top, adjusting the straps before exhaling. "All right, guess that's that." She glanced down at herself, taking in the complete outfit. The clothes hung slightly loose on her slender frame, but not comically so. They were clearly designed for a more filled-out figure, but worked well enough as transitional pieces. Claire glanced her over and gave an approving nod. "Looks good now. Sit down." Claire pointed to the vanity across the room. "It's time for you to learn how to be a woman." "I thought the whole point of this transformation was that I wouldn't have to learn," Emma protested. "Isn't my DNA supposed to do the heavy lifting?" "Your DNA is handling the physical aspects," Claire corrected. "But there's more to being a woman than just having the right body parts. There's a whole arsenal of skills and knowledge that comes with the territory." "Oh, right." She had been so focused on just existing in this new body that she hadn't even considered the finer details. "You mean I can't just show up with this brand new female body and expect to know how to operate it correctly?" she asked with mock surprise. "I was hoping for an intuitive user interface." "Sorry?" But womanhood doesn't come with an instruction manual, Claire replied, already gathering items from the vanity. It's more of an apprenticeship program, passed down from woman to woman, since the beginning of time. And I get the crash course version, I'm guessing, Emma asked, eyeing the growing collection of bottles, tubes, and tools Claire was assembling. Exactly, Claire confirmed with a grin. Most girls get years to figure this stuff out. You've got weeks. Claire grinned, already gathering items from the vanity. Makeup, skincare, hair. There's a lot to go over, sweetheart. Sweetheart, Emma repeated, raising an eyebrow. That's new. Claire shrugged. You look like a girl in her late teens. It just slipped out naturally. Get used to it, you're going to be sweetheart, miss, and young lady from now on. Great, Emma muttered. I've gone from sir to sweetheart overnight. Talk about a demotion. It's not a demotion, Claire corrected. Just a lateral move to a different department. Each has its perks and drawbacks. Emma sighed dramatically, but made her way to the vanity, sitting down in front of the mirror. The reflection that greeted her still caused a jolt of surprise. Those delicate features, that golden hair, those large, expressive eyes. It was Claire's face, but younger, fresher, with a hint of uncertainty that Claire's confident visage never displayed. So, Emma said, gesturing to the array of products spread across the vanity. Where do we start? Skincare, Claire replied decisively. It's the foundation everything else is built on. Your skin is brand new and perfect right now, but maintaining it requires work. She picked up a cleanser, holding it up like a professor about to begin a particularly important lecture. Lesson 1. Your face is not a dashboard to be wiped down with whatever's handy. It's more like a delicate ecosystem that requires specific care. An ecosystem, Emma repeated skeptically. For my face. Laugh all you want, Claire replied. But you'll thank me when you're 40 and don't look like a leather handbag. Women who take care of their skin age much better than men. It's not genetics, it's maintenance. Emma glanced at her reflection again, at the smooth, flawless skin that had replaced her formerly more rugged complexion. It was strange to think that this perfect canvas required work to maintain. It seemed so naturally pristine. Fine, she conceded. Teach me about this facial ecosystem. But if you start talking about exfoliating with crushed diamonds or moisturizing with the tears of unicorns, I'm drawing the line. Claire laughed. Nothing that exotic, I promise. Though some of the high-end stuff does get pretty close. She lined up the products in order of use, explaining each one with the detail and precision of a scientist discussing a complex experiment. Emma watched attentively, trying to absorb the information, while simultaneously adjusting to the surreal reality of sitting at a vanity, dressed in women's clothing, learning skincare routines from a woman whose DNA she now shared. This was just the beginning. The thought was both daunting and strangely exhilarating. There was so much to learn, so many adjustments to make. Her body was still changing, still becoming, and she had barely begun to understand what that meant. But as Claire continued her impromptu beauty lesson, Emma found herself relaxing slightly. This was concrete, specific, something she could focus on besides the profound existential strangeness of her situation. One step at a time, she told herself. First skincare, then makeup, then the rest of her new life as Emma. Emma shifted uncomfortably in her seat, crossing her legs and adjusting the hem of the skirt Claire had insisted she wear. The fabric was soft and flowy, brushing against her smooth legs in a way she was still getting used to. The off-the-shoulder top left her collarbones and delicate shoulders exposed, making her feel even more aware of how much her body had changed. 6 days, she thought, marveling at the accelerated pace of her transformation. Just 6 days since that first major change, and I barely recognize myself. Her body had continued evolving at an alarming rate, her waist narrowing further, her hips widening, and most noticeably, her breasts beginning to develop. They were small still, just subtle curves beneath her top, but their presence was impossible to ignore. Each movement, each breath, reminded her of these new additions to her anatomy. And then, there were the heels. I still don't understand why these torture devices are necessary, she had complained to Claire that morning as she wobbled around the bedroom. They're completely impractical and potentially dangerous. I'm basically walking on stilts. They elongate the leg, create a more feminine silhouette. And frankly, they look fantastic, Claire had replied, adjusting the straps on Emma's shoes. Besides, these are only 2 inches. Wait until you try 4-inch stilettos. I'd rather not, thanks, Emma had muttered, taking another tentative step. She still wasn't entirely steady in them, and walking into the clinic had been an ordeal. Claire had reassured her that she'd get used to it. But right now, Emma just felt incredibly self-conscious. Everyone must be able to tell I'm a complete novice at this, she thought, glancing down at her feet. The shoes were elegant nude pumps with a modest heel, but they might as well have been mountain climbing equipment for how foreign they felt. She glanced around the waiting area of the doctor's lab, trying to ignore the way people occasionally glanced in her direction. She looked too young to be Claire's sister, but the resemblance was undeniable. A woman across the room had been staring on and off for the past 10 minutes. Each time Emma caught her eye, the woman would quickly look away, only to resume her examination moments later. She's probably trying to figure out if we're related, or if Claire has just adopted a teenage look-alike, Emma thought wryly. If only she knew the truth. The truth was far stranger than any casual observer could possibly imagine. That Emma was, in the most literal sense, becoming Claire, a genetic duplicate, a younger version of the woman sitting beside her. Claire, on the other hand, looked perfectly at ease, casually flipping through a magazine as they waited. She glanced over at Emma and smirked. You're fidgeting. And you're stating the obvious, Emma returned under her breath. I feel like I'm wearing a costume I never rehearsed in. Emma exhaled, forcing herself to sit still. I feel exposed, she muttered. Indeed. She did. The outfit Claire had selected, a flowy knee-length skirt and an off-the-shoulder top, was hardly revealing by objective standards. But to someone who had spent over 3 decades dressed in masculine attire, the sensation of cool air against bare shoulders and legs was profoundly disorienting. Claire chuckled. You'll get used to it. You have to. Is that supposed to be comforting? Emma asked, shifting again and trying to find a comfortable way to sit. Because it sounds more like a threat. It's reality, Claire replied evenly. Your body is changing, and your wardrobe needs to accommodate those changes. Unless you plan to spend the rest of your life in sweatpants and hoodies. Don't tempt me, Emma muttered, though she knew Claire was right. Her body was rapidly evolving into a form that would require entirely different clothing. The loose pants and simple tops she'd been wearing around the house wouldn't suffice much longer, especially as her curves continued to develop. Besides, Claire added with a knowing smile, you look beautiful. That shade of blue complements your skin tone perfectly. Our skin tone, Emma corrected. It's your DNA, remember? Any compliments on my appearance are technically directed at you. Then consider me flattered, Claire replied smoothly. But the way you carry yourself is still uniquely yours. The packaging might be similar, but the contents are distinctly Michael. Emma, she corrected automatically, surprising herself with how naturally the name came to her now. 6 days, and already her birth name was beginning to feel foreign. Before Emma could respond further, a nurse stepped into the waiting area. Claire, we're ready for you now. Claire nodded, closing the magazine and standing up. Emma followed, rising from her seat with careful precision, hyper-aware of the heels beneath her. Don't trip, don't trip, don't trip, she mentally chanted as she fell into step behind Claire. The last thing you need is to face plant in a medical facility while wearing a skirt. The nurse gave her a curious glance, clearly noting the striking resemblance between the two women, but maintained professional discretion and made no comment. They were led into one of the private medical rooms, where Claire would be undergoing her egg extraction for the IVF process. You can wait there, the nurse told Emma, gesturing to a chair in the corner. Dr. Langford will be with you shortly. Claire, I'll need you to change into this gown. Emma took her seat, crossing her legs at the ankle as Claire had instructed her earlier. More feminine, more polished had been her exact words. But this wasn't just any clinic. This was the same lab responsible for Emma's transformation, meaning the doctor overseeing everything wasn't just focused on Claire. She was also keeping close tabs on Emma's progress. I'm basically a walking science experiment, Emma thought, watching as Claire disappeared behind a privacy screen to change. The world's most elaborate case study in genetic engineering and identity transfer. As Claire got settled on the medical bed, the doctor, a tall, sharp-eyed woman named Dr. Langford, entered the room. She greeted them both warmly before turning her attention to Emma. Well, look at you, Dr. Langford said with a small smile, adjusting her gloves. You're coming along beautifully. Her clinical gaze swept over Emma's transformed figure, assessing the progress with professional interest rather than personal curiosity. Emma felt her face heat up. Thanks, I guess. The blush that spread across her cheeks was another new development. Her fair skin now showed every emotion, every reaction with embarrassing clarity. As Michael, she'd rarely blushed. As Emma, it seemed to happen with alarming frequency. The transformation is proceeding even more rapidly than we anticipated, Dr. Langford continued, making a note on her tablet. Your body is accepting the genetic modifications with remarkable efficiency. Lucky me, Emma replied dryly. I've always been an overachiever. Apparently that extends to biologically transforming into someone else. Dr. Langford chuckled. We'll do a full check-up in a minute, but first, let's take care of Claire. Take your time, Emma replied, crossing her arms over her chest, then uncrossing them when the movement drew attention to her developing breasts. I'm not going anywhere. Literally can't, in these shoes. Dr. Langford smiled, briefly before turning her attention to Claire. All right, let's see how those follicles are developing. Based on your hormone levels from yesterday's blood work, we should be right on schedule. Emma nodded and stepped to the side, watching as the procedure began. Claire remained calm as Dr. Langford prepped everything for the egg extraction. How many viable eggs are you expecting? Emma asked, partly out of genuine curiosity, and partly to distract herself from the clinical scrutiny she knew would soon be directed at her. We're hoping for at least 15, Dr. Langford replied, preparing an ultrasound machine. Claire has responded exceptionally well to the stimulation medications. Her hormone levels are optimal. Overachievement runs in our DNA, apparently, Claire quipped, winking at Emma. Speaking of DNA, Dr. Langford continued, we'll need to run a complete panel on you today, Emma. We want to confirm that the genetic restructuring is progressing as expected. You mean you want to make sure I'm turning into Claire on schedule? Emma translated. Shifting her weight from one foot to the other, the heels making even simple standing a conscious effort. Essentially, yes, Dr. Langford confirmed without hesitation. Though it's more complex than that. We're not just looking at surface-level changes, but ensuring that your cellular structures, organ functions, and hormonal balances are all adjusting appropriately. As she worked, the doctor glanced over at Emma. So, she said casually, how are you feeling? The question seemed simple, almost banal, but Emma knew it was loaded with medical significance. Every sensation, every change, every discomfort was data for Dr. Langford's ongoing study of the transformation process. How am I feeling? Emma thought, considering the enormity of what had happened to her body in less than a week. Where do I even start? Her body was simultaneously foreign and increasingly familiar, a contradiction that made perfect sense only to someone experiencing this unprecedented transformation. She was becoming more comfortable in this new skin, even as it continued to change beneath her. The developing breasts, the widened hips, the redistribution of fat that had softened her jaw and given her face a more feminine contour. All of these changes had occurred with astonishing rapidity. And according to Dr. Langford, they were only the beginning. Physically or emotionally? Emma asked, stalling for time as she tried to articulate the complex sensations of inhabiting a body in rapid transition. Both, Dr. Langford replied, her eyes never leaving the ultrasound screen where she was examining Claire's ovaries. But let's start with the physical symptoms. Any pain, discomfort, unusual sensations? Emma considered the question seriously. Beyond the obvious disorientation of having a completely different body, were there any specific physical symptoms worth reporting? My skin is hypersensitive, she began, mentally cataloging the changes. Everything feels more. Temperature, texture, pressure, it's all amplified. And my balance is still adjusting to the new weight distribution. Hence, the death trap shoes Claire forced me into. I didn't force you. Claire protested mildly from her position on the examination table. I merely strongly suggested them, as part of your education in feminine presentation. Tomato, tomato, Emma muttered, but there was no real annoyance in her tone. Despite her complaints, she was grateful for Claire's guidance through this bewildering transformation. Dr. Langford nodded, making another note on her tablet. The heightened sensitivity is expected. Female skin has approximately 10% more nerve endings per square centimeter than male skin. Your nervous system is essentially being upgraded to a higher resolution. Great analogy, Emma remarked. So, I'm basically getting the 4K Ultra HD version of tactile sensation. Essentially, yes, Dr. Langford confirmed with a small smile. And what about the secondary sex characteristics? I can see your breasts have begun developing. Any tenderness there? Emma felt another blush creeping up her neck at the direct reference to her changing body. Yes, actually. They're sensitive. Sore. Sometimes, especially when I first wake up. And they seem to get in the way more than their actual size would suggest. That's normal, both Claire and Dr. Langford said simultaneously, then exchanged amused glances. Breast development is often accompanied by tenderness, Dr. Langford continued. Your body is creating entirely new tissue structures. The sensitivity should diminish as they fully develop, though certain times of the month may bring cyclical tenderness once your hormonal cycles stabilize. Certain times of the month, Emma repeated, the full implications suddenly hitting her. You mean I'm going to experience a menstrual cycle? Yes, eventually, Dr. Langford confirmed matter-of-factly. Once the final phase of your transformation is complete, you'll have fully functioning female reproductive organs. That includes a monthly cycle. Emma blinked rapidly, processing this information. Intellectually, she'd known this was coming. It was part of the comprehensive transformation they'd explained. But hearing it stated so clinically made it suddenly, startlingly real. Something to look forward to, she muttered sarcastically. Any other exciting developments I should be anticipating in the near future?